Hello, welcome to another edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture, a program in which we keep you up to date on the activities of Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa. As you are all aware, budget debates are underway. Minister Mustafa presented this past week in support of his colleague minister, the Honourable Ashley Singh, Senior Minister within the Office of the President, as he laid before the House the budget proposals for 2023, the budget estimates for 2023. And of course, those estimates were up for debate, the opposition condemning everything in sight, and of course, the government side of the House making sterling representations of those estimates and how it will help to transform the nation's economy over the next year. Of course, the past two budgets have been setting us up for forward movement. Budget 2023 builds on those two budgets and, of course, sets Guyana on track to meeting its obligations under the Vision 25 by 2025 and, of course, its other transformative goals in terms of making Guyana a modern, progressive country. So this week's presentation, we bring you the highlights of Minister Mustafa's presentation to the House. Remember, this presentation is brought to you through the production talents of Matrix Video Productions and Advertising based in East Berbice. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. We will be back after these messages.
The Ministry of Agriculture is warning members of the public that it is illegal to dump garbage of any kind near to or into drainage and irrigation waterways across the country. The NDIA, the agency tasked with the maintenance of drainage and irrigation in Guyana, has noted that there is an alarming increase in the incidence of garbage getting into DNI waterways and causing blockages in the first instance. But worse than that, the garbage that includes clothing, rotting carcasses, pieces of wood and metal gets past protective grills of the critical mobile and fixed pumps, resulting in damage to the pumps, which have to be taken out of service for repairs, placing communities at risk, especially during the rainy season. The Ministry of Agriculture notes that when this happens, millions have to be spent on repairs to the pumps and on clearing the canals of debris thrown there by irresponsible citizens. The ministry warns that rangers of the NDIA will be on the lookout for those engaging in this illegal practice. Persons caught will be made to face the full force of the law. A message from the NDIA Ministry of Agriculture. Government has committed to assisting coconut farmers across the country in their efforts at expanding their cultivations. This help will come through the clearing of vegetation and digging of internal drainage and irrigation channels. Farmers can also expect help in the form of technical support through NARI and the Hope Estate. Further, coconut seedling nurseries have been established in various regions as part of a decentralization program for nurseries. Coconut seedlings are now available. These are the 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. Farmers are reminded that the recommended number of trees per acre is 50. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone number 663-2709. Once the booking is made, seedlings can be picked up from a nursery nearest you. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa told the National Assembly this past week that opposition criticism of the 2023 national budget was a clear example of the visionless nature of the opposition members as a collective. Speaking during his contribution to this year's budget debate, Minister Mustafa described the budget as one that demonstrates the commitment of the PPPC government to keeping Guyana firmly on the path to transformative but prudent development in every aspect of the economy.
This budget will address the socio-economic transformation of our country and continue to fortify the government's One Guyana vision. Mr. Speaker, what was presented by my colleague, Honorable Minister of Finance, is concrete evidence that our government's policy is forward-looking. Mr. Speaker, there can be no doubt that Guyana is positively transforming at breathtaking pace. This rapid development is outpacing our brothers and sisters in the region in some Caribbean countries. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, we have been ranked the second fastest growing economy even without oil in the world. Mr. Speaker, this country is in the international spotlight for good reason and is much sought after investment destination, a far cry from just 2.5 years ago under the coalition when it was classified as a place of doom, gloom, hopelessness, and its people devoid of confidence. Mr. Speaker, this transformation that we are witnessing didn't happen by magic. It took visionary leadership of the People's Progressive Party civic government and the prudent management of the country's resources to make it happen. Mr. Speaker, it took that visionary approach to craft budgets since taking office in 2020 to realize and sustain this unprecedented development. Budgets are the fiscal means to deliver this transformative development for the benefit of all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, budgets are a means of us delivering on our promises, and we on this side, on the House, are delivering on promises that we went to the Guyanese people with. But Budget 2023 ensures that we will continue to deliver on those promises that we have made. Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed a number of events in our country's history. Since we took government in 2020, we have seen a number of events that took place in our country. And let us imagine for one moment, Mr. Speaker, if the APNU AFC was in office during this time, what would have happened to Guyanese and Guyana? The entire country would have been in serious consequences. But today, Mr. Speaker, when we speak today, the region listens. We have brought back credibility, and we are now leading agriculture in the Caribbean. The entire Caribbean are looking forward to the leadership of His Excellency President Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali.
The Agriculture Minister told the National Assembly that much misinformation and lies are being peddled as part of the opposition's objections to the provisions of this year's budget, and urged that in making presentations, opposition members should stick to truth and not peddle falsehoods.
Mr. Speaker, it says here, my information is that farmers sell their paddy to the miller, and the miller produce rice which they try to sell to the market. So it's a private business. APNU AFC now are coming to share crocodile tears and say how we run down the rice industry. How we will run down the rice industry when they increase DNI and land rental by 6,000%. They increase DNI and land rental charges from $3,500 to $15,000. Mr. Speaker, they talk about rice problem. They lost the Venezuela, one of the most lucrative markets that we had. They lost it. The farmers were suffering. The farmers who was exporting rice to Panama, they left them on their own to fend for themselves. Now, Honorable Member AG and Nandalal and myself, we are trying to recoup the money that they left the farmers with. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on what they did. Mr. Speaker, they talk about spoiled fertilizer. Let me tell you something. When we took government in 2020 and we went to the bond at Nari, there were 16,000 bags of fertilizer that were spoiled under the APNU AFC. 16,000, and the CEO is here. The CEO of Nari is here, and he can testify to that. Thousands of bottles of chemicals that they purchased with taxpayers' money were in the bond spoil. Those are the fertilizer that probably the honorable member is referring to. Mr. Speaker, again, Again, Mr. Speaker, we heard misinformation, baseless accusation. And when you come to this honorable house, you must come with facts. That is why I'm quoting the facts. I am bringing document to show that these are the facts. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member left. Probably he can listen to the facts. These are the facts. He quoted just now and said that the mid-year report showed a decline in livestock, showed a decline in other crops, and a number of other areas. Mr. Speaker, let us for one moment say that, forget about the mid-year's report. Let us look at the full-year report that the Minister of Finance published. Let us look at the budget that showed that the agriculture sector grew by 9% in 2022. But that was not the fact. This year, you had other crop increase by 27.7% in the half-year report. This year, you have the livestock here increased by 4.2% in the half-year report. So I don't know what the honorable member was quoting. He just call names, call numbers, and say, you go and prove it. Well, I am proving it, Mr. Speaker. This is a deception. This is a deception that the honorable members of the opposition has been displaying to the Guyanese people. You all remember when they lost the election, they still say that they won the election. They want the people to believe that they won the election. That's a figment of their imagination. Mr. Speaker, and I can go on, the half-year's report. And then the member went to some other place and take out some pictures and say that the abattoir there, they started it in 2020. Mr. Speaker, the abattoir is an IDB project, and the contract was signed in November 2022. The 3rd of November 2022, look the contract document here.
According to Minister Mustafa, the past budgets of 21, 22 and now 2023 sets Guyana up for greatness, with rice on a positive trajectory and the Rosal estate set to begin grinding again this year. Guyana is on the move.
That this year will increase a number of production. Rice will increase. We will see rice. 170,000 hectares of rice will be planted this year. And Mr. Speaker, as I said, that we have seen that rice have increased by 8% from 2021. And this here is a sector that is capable of bringing in large revenue. That is why we have seen increased markets in 2022. Rice, we have seen an 8.3% increase. And we plan to increase land for cultivation, farm-to-market road. We have introduced higher yielding varieties. For example, the GRDB 16, we were able to improve and increase yield from 39 bags per acre to between 55 to 60 bags per acre. We have improved crop husbandry management, improved drainage and irrigation, although in the APNU time they bought 12 undersized pumps with fire engine. Minister Nandalal and myself are trying to rectify that problem. We are still talking to the contractor in India to get this matter resolved, because every single time we have heavy rainfall, the pumps cannot pump the water out of the system. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we heard the mockery about drying floors. Drying floors are important for the development of the rice industry in Guyana. Drying floors are important. We know for a fact when we were young, paddy used to dry on the road, and still in some part of the country, paddies are being dried on the road. 47, you know that. Now we are building drying floors to ensure that we have the conflict between motorists and farmers reduced, the danger reduced. And that is why every year, we have been building drying floors across this country so these facilities can be made available to the farmers. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, the largest rice growing area in this country, Region 5, the MMA scheme, in 2021, the first crop, and the first time we went into government after 2020, we planted 100,000 acres of rice in that area. And Mr. Speaker, We had the flood, the most devastating floods in the history of our country, where all the 10 regions were affected. But we persevered. And this crop we will rebound and plant another 80,000 acres in that scheme. Region 6 will be planting almost 75,000 acres. And I'm hoping by the end, because by the end of this month, the sowing period will expire, we will cultivate approximately 200,000 acres of rice. That is why Dr. Ashley Singh in his report mentioned that rice will grow by 29.3% in this year. Mr. Speaker, in the infrastructure, we have revolutionized the infrastructure in this country. We have changed the landscape in this country. Over the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker, a number of critical D&I work we have executed. As a matter of fact, in 2021, we have built 12 new pump stations. In this year, we will continue that trend. We will build another 8. And Mr. Speaker, you know what? We will not end up like what APNU did. Go to India to test pump. The pumps will come to Guyana and test on site so that we can have suitable pump for the country's drainage and irrigation. And Mr. Speaker, also this year what we will be doing, we will be looking at large infrastructure to drain our area. For example, when the Hoplite Canal was built, we heard it was a Jack Dale's white elephant. Well, the Jack Dale's white elephant saved Georgetown and saved the East Coast during the flood of 2021. And this year we will start the construction of 3 Hoplite canals in regions 3, 5, and 6. Mr. Speaker, and those are the progress that we're talking about. We will do a number of farm-to-market roads at Anvawak, West Coast Barbies, Maikoni, Albion Chesney, Takama Savannah, 40-kilometer of road we did in a virgin savanna. Today, that savanna, you could drive 100 miles per hour on those roads to go there where the corn and soya are being planted. Mr. Speaker, we did a farm-to-market road at number 58 where almost 50,000 acres of new land will become under cultivation in the near future. And that will continue. In 2023, we will have a number of rehabilitation of roads on the Meaning in the Essecubo, and those are farming areas. We are modernizing the infrastructure because if CARICOM have to achieve the 25 by 25% in 2025, then we, Guyana, have to play that leading role, and that is what His Excellency Dr. Mohamed R. Irfaan Ali is driving to achieve that goal.
Minister Mustafa also pointed to budgeted sums for the non-oil sectors, such as non-traditional crops, a sector that has been growing by leaps and bounds over the last 2 years, with provisions made to capitalize on the gains made to date.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, the non-traditional crops, the non-traditional sector will be the driver for our non-oil economy. We have been creating the supporting environment for its development. During the last regime, little was done in this crop here, in this area here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, we cultivated and we produced 463 tons of soybeans from the Takama Savannah. And you could remember in this budget speech of 2022, my honorable colleague highlighted that we will start the cultivation of corn and soy. We started it, and it's a reality today. We have completed 40 kilometers, I said, of road in that savanna. We have expended almost $1.2 billion to commence the foundation of silo and storage facility. Mr. Speaker, we have installed, we will be constructing a wharf in the Takama Berbice River so that we can transport the commodities out and take in other inputs, agriculture input. Mr. Speaker, by the end of 2023, we will cultivate 9,000 acres of soybean by the end of this year, with projection for 26,000 acres by the end of 2024, and 30,000 acres by the end of 2025. By that time, Guyana will be self-sufficient. Guyana will produce all the corn and soya that is needed for the livestock industry, and we will save $60 million in savings. Mr. Speaker, and you have to look at the linkages, because when you produce the livestock feed, we are seeing an improvement in the livestock industry. We are already self-sufficient in poultry needs. We want to be a net exporter. And we will continue to do that because we have a number of investors that are coming to Guyana and that want to invest with locals. We have brought in new breeds of animals, 64 new breeding bulls from Texas, that we are working with farmers to develop the genetics in the beef industry. We are building this abattoir there. We have to certify the beef industry. We will be importing. We already have 437 black belly sheep. We will have received the remaining amount to take us to 1,000 so that we can create that black belly brand in Guyana to replace the New Zealand and Australian lamb that are coming in this part of the world. Those are the development, Mr. Speaker, that we're talking about. But APNU just, they didn't have a plan. As a matter of fact, I saw, and in the same thing, in the same report here, one of the farmers was saying, right, that here he said, farmers protest countrywide and nobody came out and talked to us at the Ministry of Agriculture. Then we got to hear that the minister gone on 21 days leave. The man worked 2 months and got 3 weeks leave. The farmers were saying that. We'll continue this because we recognize the importance of the agriculture sector. Although we have the oil and gas sector that is bringing large chunk of revenue into our country, we recognize that food security is important. And we will continue to invest in this sector. And we'll diversify it. We start the high-value crop for young people because we have seen that there need to be an injection of young people in the agriculture sector because we have seen the population are mature. So, Mr. Speaker, that will continue the high-value crop. We started broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, carrot. Now that program is making a lot of money for the young people. Over 100 young graduates have been engaged in that program. But unlike the APNU AFC, the opposition leader was the advice on youth empowerment under APNU AFC. What they did, they told the young people to produce cook-up rice, pepper sauce, and plantain chips with no help. No help. We have the president. We have our president who took his interest to ensure that he formed this group. And Mr. Speaker, one other project I want to mention before we conclude, and that is the cut flower project, the fresh rose project that we did. And that is making a big difference, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a number of single parents, especially mothers, are involved in this project. And annually, they will earn almost $20 million. We have already started it. Every week, we are producing 400 roses. And by the end of February, we will produce 800 roses. These are some of the roses, Mr. Speaker. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. And we, in a very short time from now, we will produce all the roses that are needed in Guyana. You know what happened? A foreign rose is being sold at $2,000 to $2,500, and we are selling a rose for $500. So a person will save $2,000. That's the way we put in disposable income in one's pocket. Now, Mr. Speaker, this budget is a budget that encompasses development for every single sector, every area, and every group. And Mr. Speaker, what I have said just now are the facts. What my colleagues have been saying over the last 2.5 years are the facts. And what my colleagues will be saying in the next 2.5 days will be the facts. And Mr. Speaker, that is something called the facts. Indisputable, like something as simple as in Guyana, there is rain and sun. Yet, there are people who will dispute that, saying we have other seasons. While we tempted to excuse an ordinary person for ignoring the facts, it's worrying when elected officials do that. Just in 2020, Mr. Speaker, the world, not just Guyana, saw the deliberate attempts by the opposition when they were in government to deny the will of the Guyanese people, to steal a country and to steal an election. To deliberately ignore the fact that they lost member of this noble house who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but did everything they could to transgress it. Recall what happened following the successful passage of the no confidence motion. The Constitution was clear. That's the fact, Mr. Speaker, but yet what is mandated was glaringly ignored for all to see, embarrassing our country in the process. If you can deny something that is so enshrined in our Constitution, deny the fact that they lost the 2020 elections, and even up to now denying the fact that they desperately attempted to steal those elections. If they can
But I allow one stealing to pass. I won't allow this one. Just expunge.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I replace it by rigging. Mr. Speaker, it is not surprising, therefore, that they continue to deny the fact that Budget 2023 is continuing the unprecedented rapid transformational and visionary development agenda by the PPP civic government to improve the lives of all Guyanese, including the honorable member on the other side. Mr. Speaker, it is sad. It's a gross disservice to the people of this country that some elected official in this House would come here to deny the fact. Thank you.
Government has committed to assisting coconut farmers across the country in their efforts at expanding their cultivations. This help will come through the clearing of vegetation and digging of internal drainage and irrigation channels. Farmers can also expect help in the form of technical support through NARI and the Hope Estate. Further, coconut seedling nurseries have been established in various regions as part of a decentralization program for nurseries. Coconut seedlings are now available. These are the 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. Farmers are reminded that the recommended number of trees per acre is 50. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone number 663-2709. Once the booking is made, seedlings can be picked up from a nursery nearest you. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture is warning members of the public that it is illegal to dump garbage of any kind near to or into drainage and irrigation waterways across the country. The NDIA, the agency tasked with the maintenance of drainage and irrigation in Guyana, has noted that there is an alarming increase in the incidence of garbage getting into DNI waterways and causing blockages in the first instance. But worse than that, the garbage that includes clothing, rotting carcasses, pieces of wood and metal gets past protective grills of the critical mobile and fixed pumps, resulting in damage to the pumps, which have to be taken out of service for repairs, placing communities at risk, especially during the rainy season. The Ministry of Agriculture notes that when this happens, millions have to be spent on repairs to the pumps and on clearing the canals of debris thrown there by irresponsible citizens. The ministry warns that rangers of the NDIA will be on the lookout for those engaging in this illegal practice. Persons caught will be made to face the full force of the law. A message from the NDIA, Ministry of Agriculture.
Well, that's all the time we have on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. The consideration of line-by-line items, committee supply, as budget considerations continue this new week. And of course, we'll be keeping you up to date on what happens. Minister Zulfikar Mustafa's contributions to those considerations. Until next time then, be good to yourselves and to each other.